Photoshop, Project 7, House Painting. We are in Stage 2 using brushes. We need to create 2 new layers above our stack. The first one is going to be named Front Door, and the top one is going to be Front Door Panels. Select the front door, and let's zoom in so that we can actually see what's going on here. Bring that up pretty close. We're going to create a rectangular marquee and select the front door. Next, we're going to pick up our paint bucket tool and make sure that you deselect all layers. We don't want to sample the back layer this time. Go to Swatches and pick up the swatch named Doors 3. And go ahead and click now to fill the entire selection. Control D to deselect, and in your Layers panel, change the opacity down to 50%. We want to be able to see through that door. Next, pick up your front door panel and select your brush. Change your foreground color to the Doors 4 swatch. Now in the Options bar, click the Brush button to open the Brush Preset Picker. You would like to select the Options menu and choose Small List so that you can see the names of the brushes. Select the hard round brush and change the size to 10 pixels. And then select Enter. Place your cursor over the inset line on the top left panel of the front door. You might need to zoom in a little bit so that you can see it. Because we selected the cursor at full size with the crosshair, you can see that our brush is way too large for what we're going to do. We need to make it smaller. Rather than going back up to the preset and changing the size there, we're going to use the open bracket key. Every time you press the open bracket, you can shrink the size of your brush. The close bracket will increase the size. So change this to a 4 pixel brush. That's going to fit much better. Click at the top of the inset and press Shift, and then click at the low right corner of that inset. It gives you a nice straight line. This is a lot like using the pen tool. Click again on the left end to make that line. While this worked very well to make a sharp edge, we very often do not have a sharp edge in real life. We're going to use a softer brush next. Pick up your rectangular marquee tool and draw around the inset block. Make sure that you are still on the front door panel layer and that your brush color is still Doors 4. Again, pick up your brush tool. This time in the Options bar, change the brush size to 15 pixels and the hardness to 0. Place the cursor so that the crosshairs are at the top of the selection marquee. And then you're going to click the top right corner of the selection marquee, press Shift, and drag down to paint the panel's right edge. Using the same technique, paint your stroke across the top edge of the panel. Change the foreground color to Doors 2 and reduce your brush size to 10 pixels. Remember, you can use your open bracket. And using the same technique, create the left and bottom edge of the panel. Deselect and now do the same thing to the bottom panel to create it. Make sure that you're still on your front door panel layer and select your Move tool. You're going to hold your Alt key and your Shift key down, click and drag to the right to clone the panels that you just created. Next, pick up your brush tool again, zoom into where the doorknob is supposed to be. Select a small brush, 100% for the hardness, and select black for the color. I think I've gone too small. Let's increase that a little bit and create the doorknob and the door plate. Zoom back out again. In your Layers panel, select the front door layer and increase the opacity back up to 100%. Shift click to select the front door panels, and the front door panel copy, and create a new group. The group is going to look like a folder. Name that group Front Door and expand that grouping. Control click the layer thumbnail, not the layer name. When you control click on the thumbnail, it's going to select everything on that particular layer, and you'll see the crawling ants coming around it. Change the foreground color to the door's 4 swatch. Then select the front door layer, and you can go to Edit, Stroke, and we're going to put a 3-pixel stroke centered around the door. Pick up your rectangle marquee tool and make a new selection around the outer door area. This is where you see how square the drawing really is. If it didn't quite work, you can redraw. And then Edit, Stroke, and this time put a 5-pixel stroke centered around the selection. Now you can deselect. Pick up your brush tool, and with a 5-pixel brush, you're going to put in the lines that extend across the threshold. Hold down your Shift key as you're drawing, and that's going to establish the bottom of the wall. If you find, like I did, I went past, I can always erase that by picking up the eraser. Now I can collapse my front door layers back into their group, and this is a good place to save. Next, we're going to create a new layer and name it Window. If you press the New Layer button and you don't get a new layer to show up, double check within your front door group and see if it popped up in there. You can always click it and drag it up above front door. Name this layer Window. Hide all of the other layers except for that window layer and the sketch layer. Pick up your pen tool. Once you have your pen tool selected, go into your options bar and choose Path. You have a choice of path, shape, and pixels, and we do want to have path. And then in the options menu, make sure that rubber band is deselected. You do not want that checked. We've used rubber band in Illustrator. It's not useful for this particular image. We're going to move now to the top of the window, and you're going to draw in the curved portion of the window. Remember that the pen tool is going to work exactly the same as it did in Illustrator. So we just need to click to start creating our path, click again to create the next anchor point, and to create the arc I simply need to click and drag up. Okay. Now in my paths I am going to make this work path that comes up, because remember we have no stroke, we have nothing, we just have that path that we created with the pen tool. I'm going to turn that path into an area by clicking load path as a selection. That's going to change that from the pen tool path that we just did to being a selection that we can then go to edit, and we're going to stroke that selection. We're going to select a 6-pixel stroke and make the color of that black. We're going to do this again. Don't deselect, because we're going to go into stroke again, and we're going to stroke that same selection with a 3-pixel white. And now I have a black outline with a white fill. I can now deselect this, and I'm going to go to my marquee tool, and I'm going to create a marquee right below this. That's going to be the main part of the window. And again, I'm going to take this and go to Edit, Stroke, and I'm going to stroke this with a 6-pixel black stroke. And then I'm going to again go to Edit, Stroke, and do a 3-pixel white fill to get the same effect. And now I can go into my layers panel and I can turn off the sketch and look and see what I have.